Hey, what's up everybody? This is my new synthesizer. It's a polyphonic 12-voice FM synth. It uses a Teensy 4.1 and the Teensy audio library. It's kind of a follow-up to the old Cirrus synth I built a little over a year ago. It has an internal 32-step sequencer. It has MIDI over USB as well as TRS-A MIDI. It has an analog clock in and out for the sequencer, and it has these capacitive touch pads which can be used to trigger notes and also used to do some additional modulation. So the voice structure, it is a fixed algorithm. It has 2 operators per voice. Both have their own LFOs. It has those both then go into an amp envelope which has delay, attack, decay, sustain, release, and those get mixed with an additional LFO and noise, and all that modulation gets mixed together and goes into the carrier. The carrier then goes into a delay and then into a reverb and then out into your ears. So the physical controls on it, we have this encoder up here, which is mostly used to select presets, but it also goes into the menu, which we'll get into in a little bit. This FM amount and volume knob are kind of independent of these, as well as this envelope loop. These that are all in this white square here change depending on what page you're on. There's only 3 pages. There's the carrier, there's operator 1, operator 2. On the carrier page, these 2 knobs act as a delay time and delay feedback. There's also a shift function for these 2 knobs only on the carrier page, where if you hold down shift, you have a reverb size and a reverb mix. Then we'll go into a operator page. Envelope, we can loop the envelope. We have our own LFO. And then we have a FM amount and FM ratio. So let's turn that LFO off. So you can hear those FM ratios, and that is identical for operator 2. Remember, all this gets mixed together to then modulate the carrier oscillator. There are some shift functions. I already showed you the reverb that's only on the carrier page. On all pages, hitting shift and envelope loop will bring in the noise, and there's only 5 fixed levels, but we'll go ahead and turn that up a bunch. You can hear all that noise coming in. Another shift function is fairly obvious, shift an octave up and down. Oop. And then shift and transpose will transpose up and down. Shift and run will start the internal sequencer, which we'll get into a little bit. Shift and these 4 right here will actually divide the internal sequencer's time or multiply it. Shift and then the menu encoder will actually change the BPM of the sequencer. This is all labeled and you can actually see what's happening on the screen. It might not be coming through all that well in the video though. So those are all the physical controls. There's also a record button here, which we'll get into. That's all for the sequencer. Let's go ahead and make a quick patch. We have our master FM there. Let's make some, maybe like a pad sound, so we'll bring the attack way up. These envelope, every stage goes to about 4 seconds and all the way down to 10 milliseconds or 1 millisecond in some cases. It's already kind of nice sounding, but let's go into our operator. This is our first operator. And a whole LFO. Let's loop that. But let's have the decay, or the delay. So you get this kind of faux delay sound, but it's just based on the envelope. Let's go into operator 2 and just kind of bring it in slowly. And we'll also loop that one. I think I'm going to go back to operator 1 and turn down the FM amount. And then on the carrier, I'm going to put a tiny bit of LFO. That's a pretty basic pad sound. Another very important shift function is when this is held down, nearly every knob can be modulated with the amount of touch that you are applying to the capacitive touch sensors. And this kind of changes depending on the moisture in your skin and a lot of stuff like that. But let's go ahead and let's go into our operator 1 to actually make this envelope really short. What I'm going to do is do shift and do touch, the amount of touch to the delay. Maybe not the attack, but maybe the decay as well. Let's see how that goes. You can kind of hear that touch modulating the time of the envelope. So yeah, that can be done with every envelope. And when you hold this down, you can get a visual representation on the screen of what is actually being modulated by touch. And you can actually go through each page and look at that. The carrier page has 2 blank spots where these 2 knobs are, because when you're on the carrier page, shift will actually do the reverb amount. So you can't do touch modulation over the delay time, delay feedback, reverb size, or reverb mix. It didn't sound that great anyway, honestly. Yeah, you can even do it on the touch to the master FM. So if you very lightly touch it, you don't get much FM at all. And then when you really put a lot of course we have an envelope on there as well, but put a lot of pressure on it, it'll come through a little more. So that's the very basic physical controls and how you interact with it. Let's just go ahead and go into a preset. These will ship with some presets that I've made on them. I found that this thing kind of excels at pads and atmospheric sounds. There's some, like this sound is super strange. I found myself doing a lot of pad sounds on this. It just seems to want to be a pad all the time. Okay, so let's get into the menu. Access the menu by pressing the encoder. And you have all of your options here. So we have save preset, delete preset, sequencer length, edit the sequence, save the sequence, load a sequence, delete a sequence, and set your MIDI channel. So not a whole lot of options here, but let's just go through Let's go back, go to an empty slot. Say we really like this for some reason and wanted to save it. Let's go into save. The way you select the letters is with the encoder. So we'll call this E, and then to toggle, to move the cursor back and forth, you use the octave forward and backward, or plus and minus buttons rather. Let's call this eat. And you just hit the encoder and now it's saved in there. So delete preset, pretty self-explanatory. Go into it. You can see all the ones on here. I'm going to delete eat and it's gone. Sequencer length, go into here. You can set up to from 1 all the way to 32 steps. Anywhere in between is fine. If you want a 3-step sequence, you can do that. Let's put this at 8. Edit sequence. This is where we're actually going to... Actually, let's come back to that in 1 second. Save sequence. It's the exact same procedure as saving. Use octave plus and minus to move the cursor around. Encoder to actually change the letters. Load sequence, same deal. There's a couple sequences loaded on here already. We'll go ahead and... actually, if you don't want to load anyone, just go to a blank one and it won't load anything. Same deal with saving and deleting. So say you actually accidentally went in here and you're in delete sequence, but if you're in here and you don't actually want to delete a sequence and you have empty ones, just go to an empty one and select it. It'll just take you back to the main menu. MIDI channel, pretty self-explanatory, 1 through 16. And then back to our main thing. So let's go to this preset and let's go to, we have sequence length of 8 steps. Let's edit a sequence. So you can do this a lot of different ways. When you're in this mode, you have to hit record and then you can essentially do step sequences. So then we go to sequence, we'll do shift run. We'll do shift encoder to turn down the BPM. In addition to this, you can essentially parameter lock any knob or button on here. So if you wanted, say, the envelope loop to happen on this step, go into record mode, select the step, envelope on. The next step, we're going to want to turn envelope off so it doesn't just continue. You can also preview the sequence by just scrolling through it. And let's go ahead and hear that. So you can kind of hear that one step is looping the envelope. That's just a small example. Like I said, any knob you change, if you're in record mode, it will record it to that individual step. You can also do this while it's playing. Let me turn the volume down a little bit here. So let's go ahead and hop out of here. Sequence will keep playing. Say we wanted to change the FM amount. As you can see, the sequencer LED goes red when it's recording, and then you can just hit it again. And now we have recorded in that automation, essentially, of our FM amount. There's no interpolation between steps. It's just fixed to each step. So it's not going to ramp up or down unless your sequence is going really fast and you make a nice smooth step. You might not be able to hear the jumping as much. But yeah, so that's the sequencer. Let's hop back into there. There's a couple other things to know about the sequencer. One, it doesn't accept MIDI to sequence. I figured if you have a MIDI controller, you probably have a way to sequence from that MIDI controller. So the internal sequencer is just for touching. It actually also records how much touch you have on each step. So if you're doing stuff with the capacitive touch sensor to modulate, remember You do shift and then a knob to assign touch modulation to that knob. That will also record into the sequence. In order to delete a sequence, double tap, you'll see the sequencer LED go blue, and you can actually just scroll through it. Or if the sequencer is playing, if you double tap it, as it plays through, it'll just start deleting the files. Also, if you want to live record in, you can with steps. If you're in the sequencer edit page and you hold down record, it'll automatically advance after you release all the notes. So that's kind of handy. You can also record changes to the octave and transpose into the sequencer. So let's say for this step, I want to go to octave 2. This step, I want to go back to maybe 0. Yep, let's go back to this first step. Make sure we're on octave 1, I think we were. Anyway. So yeah, not a very musical example, but just to give you an example, you can record octave and transpose into your sequence as well. Yeah, I think that is just about everything. Let's go ahead and delete that sequence. I'm going to load up. So here's an example, this drums sequence. Let's go to our little snare preset. Where is that guy? Or maybe the kick. So in this sequence, I ended up modulating a whole lot per step, and you can hear this. So it's kind of like a little percussion loop. So that's just based on that one preset. It's just being modulated so much per step. That last one has a loop on it. Let's go ahead and load another sequence. And then we'll go to a different preset. Oh, right. So the time division stuff. So now it's going 4 times, 3 times, 2, and then finally the slowest. And this is just for the internal sequencer. So if you're actually sending in a clock that's really fast, you can divide that down. It actually won't multiply any faster than the clock that's the analog clock that's getting sent in, but you can divide it down if you want your sequence internally to go slower. And yeah, what else? I feel like that pretty much covers everything. You can play some presets maybe. Snare sound. Yeah, I'm going to probably make a document with all of the shift functions and kind of like a little semi-user guide. I usually make these videos to act as a user guide, so hopefully if you end up purchasing one of these, this will suffice. If it doesn't, feel free to contact me if you have any questions or anything, if you've purchased one. I think that's about it. You can kind of see the ports back there. It is hardwood. It's solid. The whole base of it is a single piece of wood. There's some acrylic on the back panels here. The top is actually just a PCB. Yeah, this wood is called wenge, I believe. It's a hardwood. Yeah. I think that just about covers everything about this thing. Hopefully that wasn't insanely long. I think it might have been. But yeah, Hope you guys enjoy it. I did make 9 of them. This is my largest run of anything I've ever built. I don't know if I'm going to do another run. This took me about a year to create these, and it's not entirely the full year of just building them, but the building process did take a long time, and there was a ton of revisions and stuff. And at this point, it does still take a long time just to build one of them, as far as the case and all the soldering and everything of the internals. So I'm not sure if I'll be doing more. So I'm not trying to create scarcity or anything. I just really don't like making these after I make my first one. I usually make these projects for myself, and then I just have extra PCBs. So if you do end up buying one of these, I would really like to see what you do with it. I don't think anyone's ever sent me anything of anything they've bought. So that would be cool to hear maybe some presets you've made on it, or just hear it in a jam or something. Yeah, this video is long. Hopefully this is informative, and I'll talk to you guys later.